Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the late start. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news on Equinoxe television. First, our major stories. 11 persons have died, approximately 2,000 persons displaced, 44,700 herds destroyed, and more than 103,000 hectares of farmlands devastated by floods in the far north region of Cameroon. In the same vein, the collapse of the Yagwa Bridge causes significant disruption, cutting off vital transportation routes and worsening the region's humanitarian crisis. Away from that, September 13th, 1958 remains one of the darkest days in the history of Cameroon. Today marks exactly 66 years that Ruben Onyobe was assassinated by French troops in Cameroon. Tonight, our newsroom focuses on how his legacy continues to influence the history of Cameroon. Those are major stories. Stay with us for details and more. Thank you so much for always choosing Equinoxe television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. A disturbing humanitarian tragedy is currently unfolding in the far north region of Cameroon as floods continue to ravage the Yagwa, Magwa, Kaikai and village subdivisions in the far north region. 11 persons have died, approximately 200,000 others displaced. The victims are in dire need of humanitarian assistance, as Siri Chakutio tells us.
At least 11 people have already died and more than 103,000 hectares of fields were devastated after floods swamped villages, school infrastructures and houses in Yagwa, Maga, Kaikai and Ville, neighborhoods in the Mayo Danai division, far north region of Cameroon. In some buildings, the waters had reached a certain height in the courtyard and in some classrooms.
Many of our activities have been stopped due to the fact that there are rivers everywhere on road bridges. Bridges have been broken, even the big pond there. We are going to school now. There is no more school. Everything has been stopped because there are no activities here. We are so free. Look around us. We are seeing people changes from town to town due to the fact of weather.
The floods this year did enormous damages. I lost my house and hectares of fields. What am I going to do? Where am I to start? In the town of Yagwa on the border with Chad, the population used canoes in order to move from one area to another due to the water which covered the public highway. It's very catastrophic. Now to even buy rice, we have to move in canoes. With these floods, one can be bitten by a snake and it's very dangerous. How are we to bring him to the hospital? Among the victims, approximately 30,000 pregnant women and children were affected, thus greatly disturbing the start of the 2024-2025 school academic year. When rain begins, we start running everywhere so as to save what we can in our homes. We lose enormous documents. With this rain, one can't even sleep. Faced with this disaster, urgent measures have been taken to resettle the victims who are continuously demanding help from the government.
In the same vein, the movement of people from the central town of Yagwa to neighborhoods like Mamina, Kaskowa and Gabara has been perturbed following the collapse of the bridge over River Mayo Danai. The 40-year-old bridge that collapsed has also disturbed pupils and students from going to school. The senior divisional officer for Mayo Danai, Jean Lazen Dongo, who visited the bridge, has urged inhabitants to be patient as government is finding lasting solutions to their cries. We have details with Smart Chikan Gabriel.
Canoes have now become the only way out for inhabitants of Yagwa. This comes after the collapse of the bridge linking Yagwa to Pus, Theke, Lozina and Kuseri, making even housewives to have difficulties in going to the market. Going to the market now, one will have to first look for transportation fare for canoes before heading to the market. We are just confused now because of the situation. The collapse of the bridge, which came as a surprise to many, also left some inhabitants stranded as they were informed about the collapsed bridge. Returning to the village now is very difficult for me because our bridge has collapsed. For one to cross now, you must have money to pay canoe, and things are very difficult now. The government should come to our aid because they are the only ones to decide when the bridge is to be constructed again. Informed about the situation, the local authorities headed by the senior divisional officer of Mayo Danai descended to the scene to evaluate the damage and were quick to put some measures. The bridge has been closed on all ends. More canoes have been added to the available ones to enable movement. A security cord has been placed at both sides of the bridge to limit movement of people.
The consequences, they are enormous. First of all, the students can't have access to their various schools. Remember, we have schools on both sides of River Mayo Danai. But also we have the distortion of socio-economic activities which take place on both sides. Remember that the main market of Yagua is situated in the southern part of Mayo Danai River.
Many of the inhabitants here in Yagua are now hoping that works on the bridge will commence immediately.
A very sad story indeed. And away from that, the president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, has expressed worries over the figures of registered prospective voters published by LECAM recently. Professor Maurice Kamto says it's difficult to accept that, despite the crowd witnessed in various registration booths, the number of voters registered according to LECAM has instead dropped, even at the level of the diaspora. He was speaking shortly during a press conference at party's headquarters in Yaoundé. Anabila has the details.
Following what could be described as affluence in voter registration points in Cameroon ahead of next year's election, LECAM disclosed that over 700,000 new prospective voters registered in 2024. The president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Professor Maurice Kamto, on his part, seems unsatisfied with the figures published by LECAM and how the process was handled.
The process that led to these results was marked by numerous irregularities. Among the most blatant were the organized lack of registration kits, the obsolescence of the few kits available during this campaign, despite the significant resources provided by the Cameroonian people through the budget allocated to LECAM. The clear violation of legal provisions.
According to Professor Maurice Kamto, an audit is imperative to be sure that the number of registered voters should not be tampered with.
There were numerous administrative obstructions from the territorial administration, consular authorities, and the Director General of LECAM himself, all aimed at preventing the registration of the maximum number of voters on the electoral register, both in Cameroon and in the diaspora.
The CRM political party says several irregularities and obstacles were observed with regard to registration of the Cameroonian diaspora.
The Cameroonian diaspora is estimated to be around 6 million people. It is well known that the ruling regime fear Cameroonians living abroad, as evidence, despite the numerous declarations by various officials and CPDM executives stigmatizing the diaspora, and despite public commitment made by the President of the Republic during an official visit to France in July 2009. Nearly 15 years later, the government still refuses to pass a law on dual nationality for electoral reasons.
During the press conference, Professor Maurice Kamto insists that close to 800,000 Cameroonians registered on the electoral list in just 2024, bringing their number to slightly above 8 million prospective voters for next year's elections in the country.
Staff Lady Annabila reporting there. Today, September 13, marks exactly 66 years since the Cameroonian nationalist Ruben Omyobe was killed by French army. Some Cameroonians film at zero effort by government officials to honor by celebrating him and other martyrs. To a history teacher, Ruben Omyobe and other fallen nationalists are honored academically as their history is being taught elaborately in schools, as Innocent Aze tells us.
Ruben Omyobe, an anti-colonialist, slain by French army on September 13, 1958, near his natal village of Boumniebel in the Nyong-Ankele division of the Central region, for fighting for the independence of Cameroon, is unfortunately not honored as a martyr. Speaking to some Cameroonians, most of them confirm knowing Ruben Omyobe, but fear not too much. Nothing much was taught about him in school. It was vague. I knew more about him from my grandfather.
Je n'ai pas appris son histoire dans un livre, mais moi-même j'ai fait les recherches et compris que c'est quelqu'un qui s'est sacrifié pour le Cameroun.
A view not supported by Joa Roland, a history teacher in Douala.
On enseigne l'histoire des martyrs.
Students get to know about these martyrs when we teach them colonization and decolonization. We let them understand that a group of Cameroonians, including Ruben Omyobe, resisted foreign rule, as a result executed, since he was also a political figure within the UPC party that became popular in Cameroon, and a struggle for decolonization. It is impossible to teach history without talking about him and others.
On enseigne toujours en tête de peau Ruben Omyobe.
Another citizen wishes these martyrs be honored.
J'aimerais que mon gouvernement essaye d'éclaircir les données pour les vrais combattants qui sont dans le passé.
Responding to this, Joa Roland says,
les contenus ont désormais un aspect de continuité.
There is amelioration in Cameroon history, giving enough room to talk about the fallen nationalists like any other topic in Cameroon history.
Il y a des travaux dirigés qui portent essentiellement sur les figures du nationalisme camerounais, notamment Ruben Omyobe.
The program allows teachers to also teach the students about Enes Wanje, Félix Moumié, Douala Mangabel, Martin Paul Samba, and others.
Innocent Aze reporting there. Now we talk something else. The long and dragging power tussle between the Douala City Council and the Association of Out-of-Home Media OOH organizations has taken a different turn. Actors of these advertising agencies have petitioned the Wuri Senior Divisional Officer over what they consider as power abuse on the part of the council. We have details on this report done by Femi Armstrong Sanda.
For over the years, the right to control and manage outdoor advertising in the city of Douala has been a bone of contention, opposing the Douala City Council to the Association of Outdoor Media Organizations in Cameroon. The discord became tense this week following the destruction of some billboards belonging to the media agencies by the Douala City Council. We have authorization from the government of Cameroon to carry out publicity all over the country. However, some mayors and councils claim that we must acquire authorization from them again before operating within the council areas. The law in Cameroon does not give them those powers. Justifying their action, the city council, through the heads of its legal department, says the destruction falls within the ambit of the law in Cameroon. Dr. Mukete Ikome says the city council of Douala began by sensitizing outdoor media organizations before proceeding with the destruction.
Pour que Régie puisse opérer.
For an advertising agency to operate in a town, they need the authorization from the Ministry of Communication charged with publicity activities in Cameroon. After this authorization, they also need a visa or another authorization from the council to be able to operate, without which they cannot function in a town.
Procéder à ces implantations.
Promoters of the outdoor media organs also say that they do not understand why local councils also try to impose taxes on them or control their activities in private and internal spaces. Aristide Buna, on his part, says the collection of taxes from advertising agencies by local councils has long been prohibited by both the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development and the Ministry of Finance in Cameroon. However, local councils like the Douala City Council says the law is being poorly interpreted or understood by actors of the outdoor advertising sector. It's of right to continue to collect these taxes from the actors in this sector as provided by Article 241 Sub 3 of the General Code of Local Collectivities in Cameroon. The crying advertising agencies say that they look up to the Senior Divisional Officer for the Vuri Division for the Douala Council to be called to order in what they qualify as the abuse of power on the part of the City Council. They say that the attitude of the Douala City Council is having a devastating impact on their economic activities.
And now to something else. After a 10-year huge gap, a total of 649 advocates in training in the Lithra region have officially been admitted into the Cameroonian bar. The advocates were officially sworn in at the Wuri Court of First Instance in Douala. In a highly attended ceremony, officials of the bar, that's the bar president, advocated have been called upon to better the image of lawyers in Cameroon by prioritizing integrity. We have once more from Yamshong Sanda in this report.
The wait was indeed long, and the last of this ceremony in Cameroon dates back to January 2015 after the bar exam of 2014. This explains the emotions from across the board at the Vuri High Court premises in Bonanjo, Douala.
Today has been very exciting. I am very humbled and privileged to finally have the ability to be able to practice law, although as an advocate in training.
Beyond emotions, some of these advocates came in with clearly defined objectives driven by noble motives. The case of now Honorable Barrister Ngala Gerard outlines.
My aim is to defend the less privileged. Coming to the Cameroon Bar Association is not about money. I don't look at it in that direction because, like I said, I am coming in to defend the rights of the less privileged. You will bear with me that I've been doing this, even seeing the advent of the Anglophone crisis, getting children back to school. Now, as a lawyer, I'm able to defend them, those who cannot defend themselves. So I'm coming to the bar association because I want to defend the vulnerable. And I advise my younger ones also that don't put it in mind that you are coming to be a lawyer to look for money. Be a lawyer to be a role model and defend the underprivileged. Money can always come after.
Beyond the burning desire to defend the underprivileged, the Honorable Member of Parliament says his knowledge of the law will help him in the better evaluation of bills and the voting of laws at the Cameroon National Assembly. A desire and objective corroborated by the message of the Bar Council President, Barrister Mba Eric Mba.
The bar by this is stronger because our strength lies in our numbers. Let them dedicate themselves to their training. Let them hold tight to ethics of the profession. Let them not allow themselves to be distracted by the very peripheral signs of money and every other thing.
There are 649 advocates in training from across the Lithra region who took their oath at the ceremony that held in the Vuri High Court premises in Bonanjo, Douala.
And now let's take a listen to Barrister Claude Asira and Barrister Kameni John, all members of the Cameroon Bar Council, who will be explaining to us, outlining the importance of the swearing-in ceremony in this excerpt collected for us by Fomi Armstrong Sanda. Now we'll get this excerpt of Barrister Claude Asira and Barrister Kameni John, all members of the Cameroonian Bar Council, in this excerpt carefully selected for us by Fomi Armstrong Sanda.
The Bar Council members, we are first of all proud because, as you know, it was 10 years ago. We didn't have the possibility to have people advocate in our profession. So we are happy and proud because we did it. That's the first thing. And what I am also trying to tell you is that you don't have only to see things mathematically. You have the number, but we also have to do all our best to improve the quality, because we need a lot of lawyers. I'm sure that the Cameroon needs more lawyers, but not only arithmetically, we also need good lawyers who know the law, who have ethics, and who have to act with humanity.
It has a national impact at a greater scale. The Cameroon Bar is admitting over 2,000 lawyers. That alone brings stability within the country, it brings peace, and it gets people occupied. It reduces the rate at which we look at the difficulties in the justice system, because we have many more collaborators to assist us in the exercise of justice. It is also important to note that in a place like Douala, where they had more than 600 lawyers, the demography does not only change within the legal framework, but it changes within the rate of crime. Why? Because at the level of the police, the courts, there will definitely be people there to assist people whose rights are being violated and people who need judicial attention.
And those excerpts of Barrister Claude Asira and Barrister Kamini John ends this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of more interesting programs. Coming up next is the program Equinoxe Soir, presented by Serge Alain Otto. Bye-bye for now.